Welcome to another fantastic episode that we have for you today. We have a returning guest, and we love having our returning guests, Haseena, who has slitted in all the way from a wintry South Africa, because they are going into winter, whereas the Northern Hemisphere, we are going into summer. And Haseena is going to talk to us today about being an author and writing her, I'm going to say books, but I know that she'll most probably want to talk mostly about her latest book, because we develop, we grow, and this is what Haseena is been doing. And Haseena is a yoga instructor. She does so many different things. I'm going to leave Haseena to really explain it. But Haseena, I've known now for, I think it's going on 4 years. We met through the whole world stopping, and she became my yoga instructor. And I like to say she's still my yoga instructor at the moment. We've just taken a temporary hiatus due to conflicting schedules, but she's still my yoga instructor. 4 years with the same yoga instructor. That's like, hey, yay me. I know that Lenka has worked a bit with Haseena, and as I mentioned, Haseena has been a guest. And one of the great things is I've actually met Haseena in person, which is fantastic, when I went to South Africa. So we don't often meet our guests in person, but I actually got to meet Haseena in person, which I really loved. It's just so wonderful when you talk and work with somebody for years over Zoom, and then you actually meet them in person. And on that note, I am going to hand over the screen or the floor or whatever to Haseena. So welcome, Haseena. It's wonderful to have you back again. So share a little bit about who you are, what it is that you do, because I know there's so many different things that you do. And then we're going to get into the put on your author cap and get into the writing and your book.
Oh, thank you so much, Natalie. And it is an honor to be here with you and Lenka with you too. It's wonderful to be returning to your show. And yes, so I am, as Natalie said, from South Africa, specifically from Newcastle in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And I describe myself as a healing breakthrough coach. Actually, I don't quite like introductions per se, because we describe ourselves as, we give ourselves a certain label, and we're so beyond that. But if I were to describe what I do, my healing breakthrough coaching involves coaching based on my latest book, The Truth Walker's Journey, and also sound healing, yoga, Akashic Records readings, and I have a few courses based on the Truth Walker's Journey and also based on the Akashic Records readings. And I really feel like in the past few weeks, as you said, Natalie, we're always evolving. I stepped into my healing, my journey as healer in a deep way. And we're all healers, I believe. So that's where I'll leave it for now.
And I get you. We talk about labels. I know Lenk and I have discussed the different labels and labeling oneself on our show with previous guests. And it's something that we've got so used to doing. It's I am this or I am that. And it's lovely that you find a way to come out of that. So thank you, because it just gives us a different way of looking at things, because we are not our labels. It's just something, as you said, something that I do, and it's not I am this person, but this is what I do. So as I mentioned, we've been talking about your book, and Lenka and I are avid bookworms. I have written a journal, so it's not even a book, but it is, I really admire people who've written books and published them. I'd love to know, or just share with us a little bit about what the journey is like to write a book, because For me personally, I imagine, you 8 hours a day, you're sitting there, you've got this blank page in front of you, or this blank screen. It's like, I gotta write. How do I write? But writing is not necessarily from your first page to your last page and written in that order. It can be a little bit here, a little bit there, maybe a chapter there. And I'm purely speculating on this because there is a book in me that will appear one day when I have the discipline to do something about it. But I'd love to know what your journey has been and what got you started on the writing journey, and then to actually find a way to publish your first book, because obviously it starts with the first book. It's always the first book or the first step. And then how that's taken you to the Truth Walker's journey that you now on, because it's evolved, it's developed. But I'm sure the writing the first book and writing your last book or latest book is similar. It's got to be a similar way of doing things. And what have you learned from the first one that you implemented in the other one? So I know that's a huge amount, but just go in the direction that inspires you to share.
Oh, I love the broadness of the question, because it's a much more lateral journey than a linear journey. And I was writing since I was about 8. I always wrote poetry. I don't know where that came from. I just came into this lifetime like this. So I remember one time I was about 9 or 10, and I wrote just a little verse, which was very profound at the time. And my mom had actually said, well, why don't you just write it in your school book and show it to your teacher? Which I did. And at some point, my teacher said, did you write this by yourself? And I thought, yes. Who would have helped me write this? And the teacher had written excellent. And in those days, you have this Tipex fluid that you could Tipex it out. And she actually Tipexed it out. So she obviously thought I didn't write my own poem. And it never felt, even though I've remembered that, I've remembered it more as a fascination than an injustice, because writing just flowed from me. Whenever one thinks about something and someone doesn't necessarily believe that you're doing what you're doing, or that you're interested the way you are, and it doesn't feel like complete injustice to you, then there's something more moving you than just doing something and the reaction. It's your journey. So I knew that at a very young age, and I was always writing. Eventually, going to adulthood, my first book I self-published in 2008. And I made a lot of mistakes in the publishing area, but it came because of my sister Shamima's healing journey. And her healing journey, she's now in perfect health, and she was still healing to perfect health at that stage. So it really came out of me. I saw all the pieces coming together and the structure coming together without me planning it. And Natalie, you talked about discipline. I sometimes think that's the biggest mistake that one can make. A lot of people will disagree with me, and they'll say, no, you have to be disciplined. And if I have to do that and be structured and linear each day and come to my desk, I would probably daydream the whole day away. It's just the way I'm built. So it was more of a case of let the inspiration take me. And I think that works when you know it's your journey, not when it's something you're doing because you think, well, this is a good path to whatever else. So for me, that's how it came. It was like the wind pushing me. So that was the first book. And since then, I've written 2 books with my sister Shamima. The one being Leave No Girl Behind, How to Help Girls Become the Change in Our World. The other one that I've written with her is about getting unstressed. It's about just little tips. It was made up of everything that we knew, and it was written very quickly. And there's a difference because we put that book together and also unattached to any outcome. But I remember when someone said, I'd like to buy 100 copies for my team at, the real estate company I'm running. And it was just, wow, okay. Then came this book, The Truth Walker's Journey, The Unbecoming of Who I Am Not. And the growth point in that, and I've got my book with me, the growth point in this is that unlike the other books, especially the first book, where I had a sense of this is something bigger than me, I have grown so much spiritually that I know that this book was coming through me. I knew it the moment it began, and I'll tell you how it began, but it started off as blogs that was so important for me and then evolved into a book. It was a 10-year journey. A lot of people laugh when I say that and they go, really? It took 10 years to write this book? Well, it was a journey. When it was ready, I knew it because there were just these deeper facets coming through me. So that was the difference between the first one, which was just seeing all the pieces, and this last one where I'm seeing that I know that I'm guided and this is coming through me rather than from me. And just that complete recognition and that complete surrender to where next, what's the next step, and just allowing it. Which doesn't mean that I didn't edit like crazy, because I am an English major, which means that I'm a pain to other people. My grammar is very important to me.
Well, editing is important, and writing a book is, and I've heard this from authors who say, you just write, and then you then edit, and it's not necessarily about changing stuff, but it's about getting clearer or fixing, because sometimes, as you said, you just writing, it's coming through you literally just writing, and if you stop to think about the grammar or the right word or any, you can stop that flow. So if you just write and then fix it, then you can edit, then you can maybe move a paragraph here or there because it fits better. But it's not writing a book is not necessarily the first draft. I mean, there can be many drafts in getting that book published. It's gone through a massive journey in itself, and it's not just write the book, that's it. It's like you said, fixing the grammar, maybe clearing up stuff, deleting some sentences, adding sentences, whatever it is that's needed. And this can be quite something to go through, because you write these words and now you got to edit them, and sometimes it's even deleting something. So how has that experience been for you when you've essentially written the stuff that's come through you, as you said, and now you've got to put your English grammar head on, and the more practical, is it right? How does that feel for you to edit your work then?
I think in the beginning, and again, the comparison going to my first book, it was very much, well, this is what I've got to do. It's got to reach a reader in a way that is perfect, so to speak. Perfect. And with this book, with the Truth Walker's Journey, what I found was I enjoyed the process of seeing the different meanings. When I was editing, say for the first time, I looked at the grammar specifically, and what came through me, I kept on reading it again and again, partly because it was like, wow, I was just in awe and in gratitude for what was coming through. And the editing kind of came with that because it was a pleasure, just reading it. It was fascinating for me. Um, and then when there was a bit of a break in reading it, at a point, my other mother in Montana in the US, she had actually edited my first book. She's a Hollywood screenwriter. And so she had edited my first book. And now it was such a full circle moment, her editing The Truth Walker's Journey. And when I had actually looked at that and then read it again, there was a part of me that was wondering, well, am I really capturing this meaning? And there was a time of just letting go and just being with it. Because at some point, you've got to recognize that it's got to come through. If you could keep working on a book forever, really, and keep changing the grammar forever. So at some point when I let go of that and I let it be, then the correct way, when I say correct, for me, the most meaningful way just came through with the editing. And I allowed it to be. And I was also very blessed because this was self-published, and the publishing services provider that I used, Veronica Yeager, she actually caught little things just as it was going to print, which I was also so grateful for.
It's interesting to really hear about the process, because as Natalie said, there is a book in her, and I'm pretty sure that there is a book in everyone. And it keeps happening to me that random people, random stages of my life keep telling me, you should write a book about that. Oh, maybe you should. And I have a challenge in my mind when it comes to yes, one day I would love to write a book. But when it comes to figuring out the book, I have this kind of a conundrum in my mind, because I am waiting for the idea, for the right, big, impactful, unique idea. And yet potentially some small, little, not super unique to me, but maybe not unique and groundbreaking in the bigger scheme of things. Booklets almost, not like massive essays, not massive novels, but smaller books might be escaping. And it's the question of, do we go with the little ones? Do we start small? Do we follow these little breadcrumbs and start with a book that maybe is not the biggest piece we've ever made? But is it adding to the noise? Because there's so many books, there's so much of book out there. Does it really need to be said again? Do I really wait for the big one? So it's a question for any prospective authors out there who have the feeling or who've been told that there is a book in them, that they should write a book about that, but who have the similar nervousness and anxiety and unsure feelings around, well, do I go with the little ones? Do I do just a book after a book and after a book, and maybe one day there will be a big book? Or do I just let myself be patient for the real, deep, meaningful book idea, vision, topic to come to me?
That's such a great question, Lenka. Like you said, a lot of people wonder that. What actually came to me when you asked that was that those ideas may even tie together. So I have different journals for different purposes. one of them is called an ideas journal. So if I get a new idea for my business or for my book or whatever, I start a mind map. And again, it's not really that structured, but whatever comes to me, I just write there. So, you know, when you're talking about this book idea, which seems little, that's coming to you, I would just map it out. And if you're someone who doesn't do mind maps, you do it in whatever way you want, lists on the computer, Google Doc, whatever. And you write those little ideas, and I say little, none of them are actually little, but they don't feel like a huge project. It doesn't feel overwhelming, but you take those little steps and, you know, you just write what's coming to you and release the pressure of it. So you keep reading it. For instance, if I've done a mind map about, say, my business 2 days ago, and if I didn't read it today, which I did, it's still on my bed, I would probably forget, because in the busyness of life, we forget. So the second point is, so the first point is get those ideas down, because you never know when those ideas tie together. Maybe you think it's a lot of different little books, and it's just tying together into eventually one big book, and you just don't know that yet. We really don't know what's inside of us, not with our heads anyway. So I would do that. Then the second point is that intention. Why? It's always, everyone will say your why is important, but I don't think you need to necessarily bring it into a tangible place where you feel you've got to express it. You can keep it inside, but know your why. You know, those times in your day when you feel like, I want to go for a walk. I want to, you know, and you're just giving yourself little spaces, meditation, walk, whatever it is. Just allow it to come to you then. Like, what is my intention for this book? And sometimes nothing comes, but when it does come, then you know why you're doing it. So you're not worried about you said white noise out there because there's so many books. It's not about that. It's about your journey. And when you're doing it for your own journey, for your own why, then there are people who are going to want to read what you've written. So everyone else's journey with all those different books doesn't matter, because there are some things we all know that 100 different people can say the same thing to us, but one person touches us the most just because we resonate. We're at that point in the journey. And that's like, that works for books as well, that whatever you write, it doesn't have to be the whole world that resonates with that. In fact, it probably shouldn't be. You're writing for something that's coming out of you in a certain way, and what's humanly you is going to resonate with humanly someone else, and it just comes together like that. That's how I feel. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, you did. And you made me think about one book that I read last year. I was on a journey, kind of recapture my creativity, I would call it, kind of figure out a bit more, lean more into my own creativity, and started reading books around it. And by coincidence, a book from Elizabeth Gilbert, The Big Magic, came to my world, and I haven't heard of it before, but out of nowhere, it was there in front of me, screaming at me, you need to read me. And one thing, as you were speaking, that really popped in my mind, I remember from there, it's her encouragement not to put too much pressure on the book to not necessarily even make money, or that's not even the question, but to make an impact on others. I think the bigger message was write a book for yourself, write a book that you are compelled to write. You're the source. Write it for yourself. Like, be selfish with your writing. I think it's such an interesting concept when it comes to writing books or creativity, It's the permission to be selfish and not to do it to heal people, to support and improve and change and help others, but to create a book for ourselves.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that when doing that feels like your journey, you reach a certain point where you know that it's going to make a difference for people, and at that point, then you can say, okay, what comes to me to write in a way that people will receive it. But we can't start from that point if we're not sure of the journey first. We can't start from the point of how will people receive it. They won't receive what we're not clear about in our own hearts.
Yeah, the intention, the really what energy we're putting in, what we're focusing this journey on. Is it, again, do we want to get published? Do we want to get published by some big publishing house? Is it we want to make money? Is it that we want to, become famous and have it as a proof, like stamp of authority? Or is it that we genuinely have something to say and we just want to say it out there and have it in something? Like, yes, we can say it in a blog post, we can say it on a podcast, but there is something magical about a book when it's printed and when it's physical, and it feels like, it's interesting that books feel like they will last forever, even though obviously we know that they will not. But it gives them the sense of the life on their own, that they will outlive us, and that our wisdom and journey or experience, whatever we wanted to put in there, is captured. So tell me a little bit more about what are your hopes for your writing journey, for your books, when you're capturing your journey in your pockets. What then are the hopes that these books are the life that they're gonna have beyond?
Thank you for asking that. And in the past, I probably would have had really lofty ideas for my book, but a book becomes its own living entity. And I believe that I feel that there are many books inside me. They haven't come to the surface yet. However, with the Truth Walker's journey, I felt as if, wow, this is it. Like I was turned inside out, gave everything that was inside of me, not in a matter of doing, but in a matter of just allowing it to come through me. And it was everything that I am. And yet, as I see myself evolving by choice, because I've chosen to, evolve to my next level, heal to my next level, I see that something more is going to come. So there are times when I read some parts of the Truth Walker's journey, and I ask myself, do I believe that? Do I still believe that? And the answer is that I do, but it's deepening. So I believe it at a deeper level. I think that for this particular book, my dream for it is really to just for people to be able to align with their own personal truths, which is a difficult thing because we all have differing opinions in the world. We can see right now there is so much conflict because people don't want to see other people with different opinions or different viewpoints or different pain. A lot of people want to just see people have the same view. Like, how can you believe differently? Can't you see what's going on? And yet we look through the lenses of our own truths, which are based on our own experiences, the village that raised us, the indoctrination, the beliefs that they instilled in us, and also us breaking free of all that and discovering who we really are. So I I'd like that for people. So I'd like this book to inspire just people living their truths, living that deepest part of them where they can free themselves from expectations, from approval, from any limitations and from opinions. And then just being that. And of course, doing that leads to a lot of diversity. We already have a lot of diversity, but it leads to us seeing that. And yet, the richness is that if we all came from that point of view, then we all come to the collective table and we know that the strength is in our diversity. That's a long answer of my dream for our book, but I guess it's peace.
I love how the long answer and then it's peace. It's really simple. So you've spoken about the title and you've spoken about your journey. Can you explain a little bit about what your book is about? So sort of, almost the back, not reading the back cover unless you want to, but just explain it for our readers, because, our readers, our listeners, again, because we're talking about books, our listeners, is just explain a little bit about what the book is about and what, just what is the content of the book.
So to just give a very short sentence about it, just the title says it all, The Truth Walker's Journey, the Unbecoming of Who You Are Not, where it's about your journey to live your truth and unlayers yourself or peel away the layers of every single thing that was taught to you by everyone else, by society, by culture, by religion, by the village that raised you, everything you ever knew, stepping out of that story until you have the naked truth of who you are. So that's in short form. And the longer form is that we all come into the world as babies. We feel worthy. And if you've had a baby somewhere in your life, then you discover that the baby won't hesitate to ask for food or to ask for a hug or anything like that. Babies expect abundance. They know abundance. They never question that their needs will be met, that they'll be received with love because they come from love. So when we grow up, we reach adulthood, we have had so many. I always talk about the village that raised us. It can be our parents, can be teachers, coaches, anyone who's had any sort of influence that's significant on our life, and especially people who have been vetted and approved by our parents. They come into our lives and we get these ideas, and a lot of times they try and protect us from things that they feel are dangerous, or they want us not to be in pain or get hurt. So they say certain things or interact with us in a certain way, educate us to behave in a way that won't get us hurt. And there are two problems with that. That firstly, we're not the same. We don't all come into this world with the same feelings, the same intentions. We don't have the same likes and dislikes. So, we don't relate to the experiences they did in the same way that they did. The other problem with it is that our world is constantly evolving. I mean, my goodness, in the last 4 years, you can see the evolution. In the last, what has it been, 28, 30 years, we saw the internet, we're seeing AI now, and people feel the village, we've become the village that raises the kids, and we feel that our ideas. We want them to be morally sound. We want our kids to grow up with a good moral compass and with ideas that will get them far in life, and for them to be citizens that contribute and are inclusive. So we educate them like that, but we're paying attention to how we felt, not to their world. We haven't walked in their shoes. So when it comes to unlayering all these different ideas until one is just with one's truth, that deepest level, you can call it source energy, God within, source within, higher self, universe, whatever it is. We need to want that for our kids to want them to be that, because only then is their self-worth where we love their self-worth to be. We want them to love themselves. We want to love ourselves. And just to so that's in a big explanatory way. That's what the book is about. There's also in there the Truth Walker's Manifesto, which is, as you start truth walking, as you start living your truth every day, freeing yourself from all these layers, it can become a way of being. And as it's a way of being, there's the manifesto to guide one. There are 8 principles, which are not to do with any particular belief or any indoctrination. One finds one's own belief. This book helps organize what you already feel or believe according to your truth. Another thing is, when you follow your truth, you want to be on a high vibration so that you go into your self-worth. You want to feel whole. You want to feel like you're loved and you're loved and you're worthy. You want to be on a high vibration, and that's where the unbecoming process comes from. There are 5 building blocks to the unbecoming process, where people can actually use these techniques, but use it with what they're already doing, with their own self-development techniques. And at certain times, certain life situations, certain times of day, they could actually tap into this and be able to raise their vibration, to be able to know their self-worth.
Intense, because like you said, it's walking your own truth can be really intense, because you have to peel those layers. Yes. So it sounds like a really useful book to have, to really share and to share with yourself and to share with others, because as you said, is we come with our perceptions from growing up, and from our teachers, from our parents, from boyfriends, girlfriends, friends, bullies, whoever has impacted our lives, everybody who's impacted our lives, colleagues, managers, bosses, all sorts. And one of the things that was coming to my mind as you were speaking, because both of us being South African, we are of similar age, in I'll say 35. But we're similar age, but yet we've had such different upbringings because of the political climate in South Africa at the time, and how that. And I know when we met in February, because Haseena was lovely, she welcomed me into her home with her mother and her sister, and I got to spend a weekend with her, which was fantastic. Is we really talked about how we grew up in South Africa, and the way I grew up and the way Haseena grew up are very different. But it was nice to actually have that conversation with somebody who experienced a different South Africa to what I experienced, and that helps me to understand a little bit more about the country I come from, or the way I grew up. It gives you that different perspective. So it's not necessarily about, yes, I know the history of South Africa because it's it's the history, it's in the history books, you can Google it, but it's to actually talk to people who've experienced it. And it's something that I hadn't really acknowledged. And this, I think, is accepting that I grew up in a different South Africa than you did, but it's not my fault. It's not something that I have to be ashamed of or anything, but it's learning that truth. And that's sort of what came up when we're talking about finding your truth and the village that brings you up. But it's also it's having a way to not bring it as a burden or as shame or guilt or anything, but it's like, okay, this happened, it was out of my control. I mean, I was a kid, but how can I learn from it? What have I learned from it? And having conversations with people from different cultures. And I know Lenka even comes from a country that has its own different type of stuff that comes up, and not maybe talking about it with somebody who experienced it differently. We all have that in all the countries we come from, but it's not just the country, it's families. And I think this is so important, is learning to have these realizations about where we come from, who we are because of that. I mean, I know that coming here to the UK, so many people have essentially said, yeah, but you caused apartheid. Well, first of all, look at my age. Second of all, that's not possible. Come on, just be real. No, but you were there in apartheid, therefore, you part of the whole bad system. And it's having to separate from that and having to find ways. And I know we also get it with bosses, with jobs, with everything. So your book really sounds like is a great way to just say, okay, this village brought me up. What can I learn from it? What can I let go from it? Where's my truth in that, and not the truth of what we've been told we should believe or have, or all that shoulding that we do all over ourselves. So it's yeah, that just as you were speaking, that there's conversations that we had really came up, and it's given me something to think about since I've been back. But this conversation has really brought it forward. So I know it's been a little bit of a ramble, but it's what more life in one's life, and this is what's been part of our life. On that note, is now that you've written this book, you've come through your first book, you've really 10 years with this book. It's been a real journey on this, and not on a daily, the discipline, as you said, but it's a journey that has taken 10 years to come to where it is. What's in the picture moving forward? What ideas are there moving forward with this? So not necessarily with the book, but you've said that there's other books that they're not quite ready. But for you, for Haseena, what's sort of, now that you've created this book, this 10-year journey, you've closed a chapter on this 10-year journey, is what's Haseena's path moving forward?
Well, path is such a good word to describe it, Natalie, because I guess the book coming out into the world was more of not of a closed chapter, but of an origin point of, so where to from here? All these words, all this that came through me, what is the journey of that? And being tempted to look at outcome or where it's going, and yet knowing that it's just stepping forward, because the message is really big and it could go anywhere. So for me, it's different Truth Walker workshops, whether it's with organizations, businesses, companies, individuals, and and especially with the youth, I think intergenerational is brilliant, bringing the youth in. So just having the understanding universally that, well, let's move forward with how do we communicate? It's like my partner was saying to me a while ago that the problem isn't that people have different ideas. It's that we just accept something because we don't know how to deal with it. For instance, we have all sorts of things happening in schools. We have young people identifying as cats, and that's a whole different subject on its own. No matter what we want to think, no matter what we want to think of the more in-depth issues like transgendering and a whole lot of issues, whether we want to be inclusive or whether we don't. The point is that let's talk about it. Let us learn from each other, learn from each other's ideas. So we may not agree on certain things. That is part of the whole journey. But if someone says something and you think, well, I've never thought of that before, I still don't agree, but wow, explore that little point. See what it feels like for your own personal truth. And how can we move forward with the communication? If we can learn that as individuals at the collective table, intergenerational individuals, and if we can learn that as members of a company, of an organization, of my goodness, if politically the people who call themselves our leaders were to do that, we would not have certain challenges, because often it's them who cause the challenges. The people want to live in peace. And if we could just, as a world, this is our world, all of ours, not even just human beings, but living beings, plants, creatures, our universe, we're all living and we're interconnected. And if we can just come to an understanding of I am you and you are me, and no matter how we feel about these different issues, instead of saying, oh, but you should accept this, let's just talk and understand this. Let's just talk about why someone feels this way and you feel another way. If we're ever going to, be part of the moving forward, and our world is moving forward, and I do believe we're going into the age of peace and unity, but I also feel like it is a perspective. And if we have a them and us mentality, we're not going to see that peace and unity. So if we want to see it, then we get to speak about it. And that's the journey I want. This is the origin point. This is the path. That if we can raise our own vibration, we won't feel attacked. We won't feel the need to be attacking anyone else's point of view, because we know who we are. We know what our alignment is. And we can come from that place in our hearts where we're already all connected anyway. And I'll just end with this, and whoever's listening to this or watching this, you may want to ask yourself the question in this moment, do I know my own self-worth? And I used to think that's a yes or no answer, but it depends whether you're looking from or going to that question with your head or with your heart. If you're going to that question on a thinking level with your head, you're never going to know your own self-worth, because the thoughts come in and out and pass you by. You are not your thoughts. They're passing by like clouds. You are not, it's like weather, the sun, the rain. You are not any of the weather. You're energy. So when you're coming from your head, you will never know your self-worth. When you're coming from your heart, you will feel it. You will feel that alignment of I'm in the zone right now. And you may not always feel it, but you can use the building blocks of the unbecoming process to get aligned. And there are practices that you have that fit into those categories of building blocks. You use those. And that's where I feel the path, that origin point, it begins with us. And that's where I see this. If we could all just recognize that any reader who reads my book, I'd love that recognition. And then coming from there, just moving forward with the conversation. Very long path, right?
But it's a beautiful path. It's a beautiful idea that you have shared, like this way of thinking. And the only thing that was on my mind, I was listening to, was the taking the accountability for ourselves. I think we all sometimes it feels that we live in a world where we tend to look around and blame others and be victims and blame the circumstances and put the responsibility onto other people, responsibility for our education, for our job security, for our finances, for health, for our journey. We tend to, and we're raised like that. We're raised to listen to the teachers, listen to the bosses, listen to the doctors, listen to the politicians. And I think we are coming to an age, and it's great to see the new generation of embracing more of, no, this is my life, this is my world, this is my planet. I am taking responsibility, no matter the age. I am going to stand up and I'm going to speak out and I'm going to act with taking the responsibility, not just voting once every 4 years and expecting the politicians to it, not going to the GP for a general checkup and expecting them to give us the cure. We're getting in an age of taking responsibility. And I love that what I'm hearing from you, it's the guidance and encouragement for people to do that for themselves. So thank you for that. So we could talk forever with you. We know we have so many topics that we could go into, so many different directions that we could take this conversation, but I think we naturally have come out to a beautiful place of conclusion. But before we let you go, we always want a little extra. So love to ask you if there is a final lesson, insight, thought, golden nugget, something they would have to repeat for our listeners to come away with from our conversation today.
That's often the most difficult question, right? I feel that it's about trust. You get the gift of trusting yourself, and you get to trust yourself when you're in alignment. And the thread from there is to know when you're in alignment, know when you feel just that feeling of I'm here and everything's okay with the world. And when you're not, getting yourself to that place and then just trusting the alignment. It's very much what you said, Lenka, not looking outside of yourself. These past 4 years, with all the chaos, I guess, if you look at it, the contrast, which is just contributing to the light. When we see the darkness, we see the light. But these past 4 years have forced us, to look within, because there are so many viewpoints. There are so many different situations where we don't know what the truth is. And the only place we get to go is inside. So being able to back yourself, trust yourself, give yourself that. Yeah. And then I'd just like to include that if any of the listeners, if any of you would like to download the Truth Walkers Manifesto, it is available for free. And you're very welcome to download it. You just have to go to truthwalkersjourney.com/manifesto.
Thank you so much. And yes, we will add the link to the description of the episode for anyone who wants to go and download it. For anyone who wants to maybe, yes, get the manifesto, but then find out more about you, what you do, your mission, your alignment, your message to the world, where else can people find you online and connect with you?
Well, thank you for asking. They can go to healingbreakthroughuniversity.com, and they can also go to truthwalkersjourney.com.
Perfect. And as I said, everything's going to be linked in the description. Thank you so much, Haseena, for coming back and talking to us again and exploring this wonderful journey that you've been on and giving us a bit more insight into what it is to write a book or to think about writing a book and planning and the process of putting this piece of work, piece of art, piece of yourself out into the world. And thank you so much for doing so, for putting in the effort, over 10 years of effort to get the book out there.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Lenka and Natalie. And it's been a lot of fun and an honor to be on your show.
Thank you. And huge thank you to our listeners for being here and listening. And as always, we invite you to think what we talked about and let us know, share in the comments, reach directly to us. Let us know, have you written a book or have you been inspired by our conversation of writing a book? If you have, please let us know. We would love to hear. And until next time, see you soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to our conversation, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and don't forget to subscribe. We would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and write a short review.